If you've ever spent time in tech communities, you've probably heard people say Linux is faster, safer, more customizable, and free. So why does almost nobody use it on the desktop? Why is Linux powering most servers, most smartphones, most supercomputers, yet still less than 3% of personal computers? Today, we're breaking down the real reasons, the myths, and the misunderstandings that keep Linux from becoming mainstream even in 2025. Let's start with the most obvious reason. People stick to what they know. For decades, Windows and Mac OS have dominated the desktop. When someone buys a laptop from a store, it comes with an operating system pre-installed. No one asks them what OS they want. Most people don't even realize there are choices. Linux never had that luxury. It never came bundled with mass-market laptops, at least not widely enough to matter. And humans naturally avoid change, especially when everything already works. Another major barrier is software availability. Even though Linux has thousands of native apps, the truth is, some mainstream tools, like Adobe Photoshop, Premiere Pro, AutoCAD, and many AAA games weren't built for Linux for a long time. And even though compatibility has improved dramatically thanks to Proton, Wine, and Flatpak, the perception that Linux can't run important apps still scares people away. It doesn't matter if the problem is fixed if the perception remains, adoption stays low. Then there's gaming. This used to be the #1 reason gamers avoided Linux. But things have changed massively. Thanks to SteamAS, Proton, Vulkan, and the Steam Deck success, Linux gaming is better than ever. Most Steam games run flawlessly today. Still, console gamers and Windows gamers grew up in a world where Linux wasn't an option. Habits don't break overnight. Another overlooked reason is professional environments. Offices rely on software ecosystems. Microsoft offers proprietary business apps, VPN clients, Microsoft Active Directory, and so on. IT departments aren't going to rebuild entire workflows just to switch to Linux. For many companies, Windows isn't better. It's just deeply integrated into their infrastructure. Let's talk about user experience. Linux offers amazing desktops: Gnome, KDE, ePlasma, Cinnamon, XFCE. But here's the catch. The Linux ecosystem is fragmented. Dozens of distributions, different package managers, different update systems, different app stores. That freedom is powerful, but also confusing. New users don't want to choose between Ubuntu, Fedora, Arch, Manjaro, Poppy, _OS Debian, and 400 more. They want one option that just works. Windows and Mac OS have clear identities. Linux has thousands, and then there's hardware support. Although Linux is excellent on many devices, it sometimes struggles on newly released hardware. Manufacturers often delay Linux drivers or don't release them at all. Compare that with Windows, where vendors actively optimize and support hardware. When someone installs Linux and Wi-Fi doesn't work out of the box, they instantly give up, and that's perfectly understandable. Another reason is marketing, or actually the lack of it. Linux is open source. No billion-dollar companies paying for ads, influencers, or branding. Windows has Microsoft. Mac OS has Apple. Linux has volunteers. A few passionate communities, a few developers, but nothing powerful enough to push Linux to every living room. Great technology doesn't always win great. Marketing does. Now let's clear up the biggest myth. People think Linux is too hard. That might have been true many years ago. But today, Linux is incredibly user-friendly. Modern distros like Ubuntu, Linux, Mint, Zorin OS, Elementary OS, and KDE Neon feel polished and intuitive. For everyday tasks like browsing, office work, video streaming, coding, and even editing, Linux is more than enough. The problem is that most people never actually try it. But here's the twist. Even though Linux isn't popular on the desktop, it dominates everywhere else. Android, Linux, Steam Deck, Linux, most routers, Linux, supercomputers, Linux, cloud servers, AI systems, IoT devices, mostly Linux. The world depends on Linux more than ever. You just don't see it because it's behind the scenes. So, does nobody use Linux? Or is it actually the most used operating system you never notice? The truth is, people don't choose Linux because of habits. Software, compatibility, marketing, an ecosystem law cannot, because Linux lacks quality. In fact, Linux is one of the most impressive pieces of technology ever created by humanity. Now, the big question, will Linux ever go mainstream on desktop? The answer might surprise you. With the rise of cloud apps, cross-platform software, the Steam Deck phenomena, and users wanting more privacy and control, Linux is growing faster than ever. Maybe Linux won't dominate tomorrow, but its influence is expanding every single day. And if companies start shipping Linux laptops by default, everything could change. Until then, the people who use Linux don't need everyone else to switch. They just enjoy the freedom, the speed, the customization, and the power. Maybe Linux isn't for everybody, but it might be exactly what you didn't know you needed.